Hey everybody, I'm that one guy, and I wanted to create a series of videos to go over the Weakauras I've created. The whole purpose of the Weakauras is obviously to help you better understand your spec and hopefully help you play better as a result, but also to gamify the game. Because WoW does present you with some spell alerts for the specs you play, but not all. And so that leaves you looking for ways to identify if a certain buff or debuff is active. And that's where Weakauras can come in play. And I wanted to do more than just have an icon with a timer in it, right? I wanted to try to present you with visual effects that make it feel more like a video game and immerse you more into the spec you're playing. At least that's the idea. So in these videos, I'm going to go over the Weakauras I've created, how I intend for them to work, and show you how you can modify them if you'd like. So whether you've already found my Weakauras, or you're looking for some for a certain spec, or you just want to have a better idea of how Weakauras work in general, hopefully these videos will help you with that.
Enhancement Shaman. And let me just say there's a lot. There's a lot of abilities, there's a lot of Weakauras that you can track and see on your screen. There's just a lot of different stuff that an Enhancement Shaman can be aware of. And I won't say that I'm an expert. I had someone try to educate me on the playstyle of Enhancement, and I read through the priority list of rotations, so I try to set it up so that if it's important to know, you'll know about it, and otherwise not. So you pick and choose what you'd like to see. Some of this is based off of what some people asked me to include so that they could see it for themselves, so it may not be for you. But again, you can see there's a lot of stuff that you could track or be aware of. We'll just go from top down and try to get through it as quick as possible so it's not a forever long video. Starting with Ascendance. When you're in Ascendance, you'll see that, right? Maybe a nice to know thing, maybe kind of helps you understand when you've procced it if you're taking that ability, but just, again, kind of a nice to know thing. We talk about gamifying the game. When you're in Ascendance, you will see that image. The first set of hero talents, Stormbringer, pretty simple and straightforward. When you have Tempest available, right, when it's replaced your Lightning Bolt with Tempest, you will see this icon right here. After you cast Tempest, you get Arc Discharge, meaning your next two Lightning Bolts are instant cast. I have it set currently to only load when you're Ellie, because from what I could see, there wasn't any emphasis on using those, mainly because I imagine they use your Maelstrom weapon, and so I felt like they just kind of sat there forever as I tried to wait for an opportunity to use them, which was rarely, if at all. If you want them to load when you're Enhanced, just come in here to this Arc Discharge, the load tab, and click that box. Otherwise, you won't see those unless you're Ellie. For Totemic, right, you won't see those little orbs inside those circles, right, until you've cast the totem. You will see kind of like an empty one of these, and it won't load because of the conditions I've set, right? It'll just be blank for the moment. But it'll be empty when Surging Totem is off cooldown, so you will see those. And again, I'll try to show all this in combat at the end so you can kind of see what it looks like. But you'll see this icon, these icons, without the orbs in the middle when Surging Totem is off cooldown. And then when you cast Surging Totem, it will fill with the elements, the whirling elements. And then as you use them, they'll go away completely. And then again, that image will come back when Surging Totem is off cooldown. So kind of helping you maybe keep track of that amongst other things. Like I said, there can be a lot. Primordial Wave and Primordial Storm. It's a two-part thing. When Primordial Wave is off cooldown, you'll see these icons, and then when you can use the Storm, it'll have just that little extra glow to it, right? The little wispy smoke on top of it. So when it's available to use, and then after you use it, you'll see that. Right, so again, just another set of icons to kind of help you know when stuff comes up off cooldown. If you'd like, again, anything, there's a lot, so pick and choose. Anything you don't want to keep, just go ahead and delete it. It's not going to hurt my feelings, or change its color or move it. As I've said before, I play with 0% spell opacity, just kind of what I'm used to, but it also means I have to recreate stuff that already exists a lot, but also gives me a little more flexibility over its size and location. So I did my best to mimic what the Maelstrom weapon looks like, for the main purpose of when you have over 5 stacks. This is what I didn't like about the Maelstrom weapon tracker that you just get with the base UI from WoW is that it looks the same whether you're at 5 or 9. Whereas on this one, as you get over 5, they will start to change color to like an orangish red, right? So each individual little bolt here will change colors, letting you know that you are, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then when you're at 10, it's just that image, which I think you're familiar with. So that's why I did that. One, I wanted to be able to move it and resize it and put it wherever I wanted. And then two, I wanted to have a better idea of where it was as far as when it's over 5, rather than just knowing, well, you have 5, and then eventually know if you have 10. Feral Spirit, when it is off cooldown, you'll see that little icon. Right? Just a little button basically that pops up letting you know it's off cooldown. Since there's so much CDR you can get for that, I found it very helpful, and this will only load if you, basically if you don't take the talent that replaces it, right? So if it's not going to be a button you cast because you've taken the ability that just makes it passive, you won't see that. If it's actually a castable CD, you will have that icon in your screen. Crash Lightning is a 2-part thing. When it's in AoE, it has separate load conditions, right? So it'll know that you've taken Converging Storms rather than the more single target focused one. And when it's off cooldown, you'll see those images up top. When you're taking it for the tier set in single target, right, the load conditions change, right? So now it knows you've taken this ability, kind of the single target talent for Crash Lightning. But its trigger changes also to where it will only show 1 when it's off cooldown, and then 2 when you have stacks from the tier set. I don't have the tier set on this character, so I can't necessarily show that in action. So if somebody does notices there's a bug about it, let me know and I can try to fix it. Because like I said, I try to make sure everything works as intended. But again, the load conditions will depend on whether you've taken the single target or the AoE related talent for Crash Lightning. If you take neither of those, this won't load at all. So just keep that in mind. But again, that icon will show up whether 1, you're in AoE and it's off cooldown, or 2, you're in single target and it's off cooldown and you have some of the buff from the tier set. Sundering, when it's off cooldown, you'll see that. I think that looks cool. Again, someone asked me to include Sundering for them, so I made that image, and after working hard to make an image, I thought it looked cool enough that I would just keep it. Stormstrike, it will normally be blue. When you have 2 charges of it, it's white. So I guess depending on how many charges of it will depend on the color of it. It could normally be white. But yeah, when you have 2 stacks of Stormstrike, it's white. When you have 1 stack, it is blue. And jump around for a second. Whenever you have the Storm Surge buff, right, from resetting your Stormstrike, you'll see this. Just again, do you need to know about it? No, probably not. You just need to know if you have any charges of Stormstrike and how many, but that's just another thing that exists. And if you don't want it, again, right click, delete, or set load to never. This is the icon for Lava Lash. Ooh, let me go back. You can see it. Right? It's going to look kind of similar to if you've seen the Fire Mage one. This is just a different rotated version of Fire Blast. I actually made this one first and then decided I liked it for Fire Blast on Fire Mage as well. But when you have Lava Lash off cooldown, you'll see that. That one's pretty simple and straightforward. I'm not 100% sold on this, but it's what I could come up with for Voltaic Blaze. When you have that buff, you'll see it. Right, and again, a lot of this, there isn't really much overlap. They all kind of exist in their own place. It can be a lot overwhelming if there's all of this active at the same time. Again, delete what you don't like and keep what you want. So when you have the Voltaic Blaze buff, you'll see those. Doomwinds is a 2-part thing. One, because as someone was kind of educating me on the playstyle of Enhancement Shaman, is when they're playing Totemic, and they were saying that they really only cared about Doomwinds when there were certain conditions active. One of them being Legacy of the Frost Witch. So its load conditions, right, are 1, if it's off cooldown, right, if you can use it, and then 2, if Legacy of the Frost Witch, that buff is active. This is set only to load when you're in Totemic. All right, and then also they cared to know that the Doomwinds buff is active, and that's what they called them little eyebrows. That's what those are, right? If you are not in Totemic, right, I didn't see any extra conditionals related to Doomwinds there. Just use it when it's off cooldown. The triggers for this one is just if Doomwinds is off cooldown, right? And there's no indicator of buff being active. So, and this one won't load when you are in Totemic, and this one won't load when you are in Stormbringer. But depending on the correct way to play, you may need to change up what the triggers are, what the conditionals are, or maybe just delete one entirely. Maybe you don't care about knowing when Legacy of the Frostwitch buff is active, or that the Doomwinds buff is active, and really just only care to know when it's off cooldown. And then you could change this. You'd come into these load conditions and just uncheck that. Right, because this is basically saying if Surging Totem is known, or if you pick that hero talent, it's not going to load this set, and it will instead then load this set. The Hot Hand buff, which I want to say Hot Hands, but I understand it's just one. But when you have that buff active, you will see this, right? Just reusing Lava Surge for Ellie and Resto. Storm Surge we talked about, and then Legacy of the Frostwitch. Okay, if you have the Legacy of the Frostwitch buff active, you'll see those. That's it. That's all of it all together. Right? Well, it looks like a lot. What it looks like in terms of playing it, a lot of them will only show when you're in combat. Right? There is the Feral Spirit icon active, and see, now I've dropped combat, so it's not going to show anymore. But there is the letting me know Feral Spirit is usable, and then this obviously lets me know that Doomwinds is usable. This is telling me that Stormwind is Ascendance is active. There's all my Maelstrom stuff. As you can see, it turns orange when it's above 5. And Storm Surge, I think you saw the Tempest thing for a second there. There. See, that lets me know that Tempest is ready. Feral Spirit's back up. Whether I have one or two strike, one or two charges of Storm Strike, right? I'd say that's pretty much it. Again, it's not going to show you if you have Arc Discharge, right? I'm certain that's why this is glowing. It's not going to show you that because again, I didn't see anything where that's a button you'd want to push. But again, if you want to know that, you just have to go into the Arc Discharge thing and set its load conditions to also be for Enhance. As you can see, I have Crash Lightning, but you're not seeing that icon because it's in the single target where it's only supposed to tell me if I have the buff active. And since I don't, theirs will take Blaze. Since I don't have the tier set, I'm not going to have that buff active. Right? So that was all for Stormbringer and its load conditions and its priority list. One thing I forgot to mention is that one of the conditionals for this is that if you have 10 stacks of Maelstrom Weapon, but Ellie Blast is on cooldown, it will turn blue. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where this is blue, that just means Ellie Blast is on cooldown. You may have Tempest available, but it really just means that Ellie Blast is on cooldown. So if you don't have Tempest and you don't have that, then go to whatever's next on the priority list, right? But that's it for, like I said, a lot of the Stormbringer conditionals and just in single target. If I switch it over to Totemic really quick, just to kind of show what I was talking about with those. When your Surging Totem is available, right, it's empty. This also is Primwave is off CD, is ready to be cast. When you use that, you see it fills, right? And then as you use them, they go away, right? And then I use Primordial Wave, and now you see it's kind of lit up, letting me know to use Primordial Storm. And then because I did both of those things, Legacy of the Frostwitch is active, and now it's telling me I can use Doomwinds. So again, that's kind of a little bit of the change for when you're in Totemic versus when you're in Stormbringer. Is mainly just one, you'll see something for obviously the cooldown of your totem, your Surging Totem, and for the cooldown of Primwave, but mainly for the conditional of Doom Winds, right? And that instead of showing when that's off cooldown, it will only show when it is off cooldown and when you have Legacy of the Frost Witch active. And because you've taken this talent instead of Witch Doctor, you're not going to see that icon for Feral Spirits because it's not a button you can push. So that's it, right? Main difference between the two just being those load conditions for Doom Winds. But other than that, I didn't show you anything for like when you're using Sundering or Crash Lightning, but just trust me and know that if you have those talented, all right, and they're off cooldown, you'll see those images as well. If you feel like I left anything out, or if you think there's something else I should change or include about the Enhancement Shaman Weakauras, just let me know in the comments.
Again, I hope you found that helpful. I do intend to make a Weakura pack for every spec. So if I haven't made one for the spec that you play or that you'd like to see, just comment that down below. Again, I do intend to make one for every spec, but if I see people asking for it or really wanting one, I'll probably get to it quicker than if I just do it on my slow, leisurely pace. I hope it will enhance your gameplay. Like I said, it's all about gamifying the game and making it more fun and more immersive for you, while also helping you improve as a player because the information that you need to react to is hopefully more readily available. If you have any other questions about this Weakura pack that you just watched or any other ones, again, please feel free to comment. I try to be as interactive as possible in my YouTube section. And that's it. Hope you have a great day.